Welcome everyone to Jaden's Jam. I'm your host Jaden Goss, and today I'm going to be reviewing House of the Dragon, Episode 3, Second of His Name. So, a couple things up front before I get into my spoiler review. Number one, I will not be spoiling any future events that will be happening on this show. So, no worries if you have not read the book. No worries, there will be no spoilers. You can watch this free and clear. You'll be good. I'm just going to talk about what's happened in the show. And if I do end up maybe referencing something in the book, it won't spoil it, if that makes sense. So, anyways, I love this show. It is definitely my favorite show on TV right now. We're 3 episodes in, of course. You know, it could fall apart by the end. I highly doubt it, just from the level of storytelling and character work that they've already done in these first 3 episodes. And there's a great action set piece in this episode. So, you know, to me, it really does feel like that early first few seasons of Game of Thrones to me. Full disclosure, I'm one of those people who's not a fan of the last few seasons. So, I have read the books, love them. This is my favorite universe. So, like, this show was made for me. And I really enjoyed Fire and Blood for what it was, but it's definitely not my favorite. So, it's interesting seeing characters that I know the history of, or what George has told us. George R. R. Martin. I don't know why I call him by his first name. I don't know him personally. Anyways, I'm not a professional, if you can tell already. Yeah. So, um, I'm not like, uh, I find all of the Targaryen history interesting, but of course, my main bread and butter is A Song of Ice and Fire, is the 5 books so far. Hopefully one day we'll get wins, but you never know. So it's interesting seeing characters that I know stuff about, know what's going to happen to them fully. By the way, we know the whole story of Dance of Dragons, which is what this, or Dance with Dragons, which is what this is based off of. That time period, that Targaryen Civil War, and so I have really enjoyed this so far. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. Paddy Considine, I think I'm saying that right, who plays King Viserys, is absolutely fantastic. And the first 3 episodes have built him up so well. I mean, he's such a complex guy. He did what I would consider very bad thing in the first episode. You know, I mean, he didn't have much of a choice, I guess, but he should have told her. He should have told Emma, but he didn't. Hey, but it's interesting how, like, and I think we'll see it in this show more so than Game of Thrones, is the fact that most of these characters are gray characters, or I guess you could say neutral if you wanted to, where they'll do good things, they'll do bad things, and you'll see. And basically it's like, more realistic to how real historical figures were, basically, is, the people are complex creatures. Everybody makes mistakes, everybody has done something bad. Hopefully you've done more good than bad, I would assume. And of course, there's some irredeemable stuff, obviously, whatever. Anyways, but Paddy Considine's performance has been fantastic. And honestly, King Viserys, who, not really one of the Targaryens that I am super interested in when I think about Fire and Blood, and just my mind goes to so many other Targaryens before I even think of him. But I think by the end of this show, King Viserys, if it continues to be written well, if he continues to be portrayed well, he could be one of the best Targaryens that we've seen on either show. And so it's really cool seeing, he's taking a character that really all that we were kind of told is basically he's a weak king. He just wants to keep peace, basically. That's his thing. And being able to see interpersonal dynamics between him and Rhaenyra, him and Daemon, so like it just shows you different layers and yeah, he wants to keep the peace. Obviously, he even says in this episode, I don't want to deal with this political bullshit. I just want to go on a hunt. And yeah, they're pulling. It's cool how they're just pulling stuff for like book readers. Like maybe we got like a sentence in Fire and Blood about, and we're getting to see like how it is, visually, because this changes the medium, because when you're reading a book, you're building everybody in your head to what you want them to look like. Maybe you do. Well, I guess you build off the character descriptions that are told to you. And with characters from Fire and Blood, none of it, you don't get much dialogue from the like firsthand accounts. It's all secondhand, really. It's based off like the maesters, and they write all the history, and they're reviewing it, and they're taking sources from the time, but it's not. You're not getting Daemon's point of view. You're not getting Rhaenyra's point of view. You're not getting King Viserys' point of view. And so it's really cool seeing this show is giving us their point of view. And there's just a lot of rumor in the book, so it's going to be really cool to see how the show will take some of the rumors and maybe say, hey, this was true, this was all bullshit. It'll be cool to see. Sorry, my brain is ADHD, so I will go off on tangents, so I apologize. But yeah, Patty's fantastic. He's great. And my favorite scene from this episode, I think, is the one with him and Jason Lannister, where the second he finds out that Jason in particular, but also other lords are starting to think, well, Aegon the Second is here, so that means Rhaenyra is no longer heir because she's a woman, and Aegon is the first male born from Viserys, so obviously he's gonna be heir. And I just love that scene where he's like, no, I did not name Rhaenyra on a whim, is what he says. I chose her. And if there's rebellion, you better tell me about it. I love that because his character is so good. He anchors so much of this show, and I love it because it's just not a character that I really cared about from Fire and Blood. So it's just cool seeing them bring this character to life, and his acting is just fantastic. I love when he explodes and yells at people, and he can just, and then you see moments where he's smiling and laughing, and he can be affable. He just wants peace. He and he hates politics. He's a king who doesn't want to be king, and I just think they're doing a great job with him. And Rhaenyra, talk about a character who, I'm not going to give anything away, of course. A character who is, I don't even know. I'll stay away from it. Just from the show, fantastic. I mean, when at the end of this episode, when she's walking down, she's covered in blood, and she has just a look on her face like, fuck all of you, like, fuck every single one of you, and I love that she is so resolute. And I'm gonna miss. I think her name is Millie Alcock, if I'm not mistaken. I should have looked at the actors' names before I started talking about this. Some of them just haven't stuck in my head yet. But she is awesome as Rhaenyra, and I'm gonna be sad to see her go, and then she'll be played by Emma Darcy. coming up in later episodes whenever they do the time skip that they're going to do. Which, by the way, it's in the trailers, not spoiling anything. You've already seen some time skips. There's going to be some more time skips over the course of this first season. So I'm kind of sad to see her go, to when we eventually see her go and she's played by someone else. It's going to be a lot of people are going to compare the two actors. So it'll be interesting to see what people um, think about each one. But she is awesome. I love her. And another great scene from this episode was her at the end talking to her dad, and the whole time she's like, no one's here for me. Like, none of this is about me. Like, why do you want me to be here so bad? You are going to name Aegon your heir. Like, it's pretty simple. Like, everybody knows it. Everybody's talking about it. It's you who won't just it's you who is trying to say that it's not going to be that way. Like, you're the only one. And so it's just I love that scene, and you see Viserys where he breaks for a second and he goes, "You misjudge me, Rhaenyra." And then I love the switch. I love the switch where he's like, "You know what? You choose. You choose the person you want to marry, like I did," which is another great thing. I really like Viserys and how he is honest, and he will switch if someone makes a good enough point to him. It's part of the reason to him being affable, maybe easy to lead in other directions, as we see in these first 3 episodes, is he is easy enough to manipulate, but he is affable, which is a good quality. He will listen to people, and he will change his mind. He is stubborn though, and I like that. But I just love that scene, and the fact that he changes his mind, and I like that. I think we haven't seen a lot of great leaders in these shows. Yeah, we got Jon Snow, who great leader, and we got, I would say, Sansa, great leader. But most of the kings we've seen have been horrible in different ways. You got Joffrey, Tommen. You know what? I think Viserys is similar in a way to Tommen, just older and more mature, so he's a little smarter, maybe. Not as easy to manipulate because he's not a child, but I kind of compare the two. But I just love that scene. And at the end of it, where he's like, "I swear on your mother's memory, you will not be supplanted. You are the heir." And I loved it. And I loved Millie's acting, where she looks away from him when he tells her she can pick who she marries. You see her break a little bit. Her acting is so good. The acting in this show is just phenomenal from everyone. So yeah, I love Rhaenyra. Just so fucking cool, and I love the hero moments they've given her so far, and she's fantastic. And she's also a great character. But you also got to think she's a teenager too, so she's making mistakes. She's not always smart politically. I think this episode kind of showed, by the I think she'll get a lot better, I should say, a lot better politically. And I just love Rhaenyra and Viserys. Any scene with Rhaenyra and Viserys, I'm glued to the screen. They're just so good. And then we get to Daemon. I pretty much knew ahead of time that Matt Smith was probably going to be my favorite. Daemon Targaryen was probably going to be my favorite on the show, just because he's probably my favorite Targaryen from this era. And so, but just seeing Matt Smith bring him to life, I mean, he has the qualities of a petulant child. He has the qualities of a badass hero. He also has the quality of a evil villain. And I my favorite character from Game of Thrones, from A Song of Ice and Fire, from the books, whether we're talking the show or the books, I didn't like how he ended up in the show because it just went back on all the character development he had. But Jaime Lannister, and I know there's already been a lot of comparisons, but it really is the easiest comparison to make from show to show is Damon and Jamie, and and Matt Smith is just bringing so much to the character. And I mean this ending, yeah, it was a little superhero-y, him just running through and murdering a bunch of dudes and then not getting hit by any arrows. Totally get it, and you will not hear me try and argue otherwise. I have seen some people say that like it's a foggy beach, they're far away, so maybe I don't know. I'm not gonna argue that. That did take me out for a second, but it was cool as fuck. I mean, I'm also a fan of Marvel and DC superheroes. Like they don't bother me like a lot of people. I love fantasy, Lord of the Rings. I love all this shit, and so I'm used to seeing these kind of moments. And I do think it was important to show that Damon needs to prove his worth to Viserys. He needs to prove his worth. And I'm talking about from his perspective. He needs to prove his worth. And when he gets that letter from Viserys, he beats the shit out of that poor messenger with his helmet. Which, another thing, he's done a lot of vile things already. But he still can have like some cool hero moments. I don't know. I am more interested in gray characters than I am goody two shoes or just mustache twirling villains. The reason why I connect so much with this universe is the fact that so many of the characters are gray. So many of the characters do good and bad things, and it's more realistic to life than what you see in a superhero movie or what you see in like a Lord of the Rings type. I'm not saying there's not complex characters in Lord of the Rings. Please don't attack me. Or that there's not complex characters in superhero movies, but the mass majority of them, it's good versus evil, and I like the adding a little bit more shades of gray to it. And this show's really going to show that. I mean, we will all see by the end of this first season. We will all see. And anyway, so I loved all the action, beautifully shot. Ah, so good. I love seeing the dragons. Caraxes is fucking awesome. But you know what? My favorite moment of that whole battle, if we're zoning in on the battle, Laenor Velaryon coming in on Sea Smoke was. I actually like hooted and hollered when I saw that because it was just so cool to see them like finally do something with Laenor. I know that he hasn't really needed to be involved yet. Really, I mean, we've only seen him in the first episode, I think, where he's just sitting in the stands with the rest of the royalty watching the tourney. That's really the only time we've seen him. So it's cool that they're really starting to bring him forward. He's one of the people that is mentioned to possibly marry Rhaenyra. So that's cool. Like that they've already started to mention him more, and the fact that they gave him a really badass moment this episode, it just gives me hope. I'm a big fan of Laenor and just the Velaryons in general, and so I just love that they gave him a cool moment. Same thing with Corlys, and even Vaemond, which was I love that moment where like Corlys looks at Vaemond and he's like, I will not have a mutiny. Shut the fuck up. It makes sense. They're already losing. The last thing they need is everybody rising up against Daemon. And yeah, it's a great. And I love the fact that they show that just because you have dragons, which are nuclear bombs, does not mean you are going to win a war or that you can win a war depending on where you're at. For instance, I love the fact that they had um, the crab feeder and his men, the Triarchy, hiding in the caves every time the dragons would come out. Smart, very strategic. I like that. I like that they've thought about, because the stepstones in Fire and Blood is like a paragraph, maybe it's a page long, just the history of what happened with the war. So it's cool that you can tell that they really thought about, like, well, how does Daemon and Laenor, like these dragon riders, not just crush the crab feeder and his men immediately? And it shows you, well, they got caves to hide in. And the writing on this show is just fantastic. And I know I'm seeing a lot of people say it's very slow, it's a slow burn, and I get that. I love a good slow burn. I don't think slow burn immediately means that whatever it is bad. There are plenty of things that are slow burns, quote unquote, that are fantastic. There's a difference between slow burn and slow, and I don't think this show is slow, in my opinion, but that's my opinion. So I loved this. This might be my favorite episode. Like, you can get me with a good battle, a good action scene. You've got me already. But then you add all the politicking. By the way, speaking of politicking, let's go back real quick. Rhys Ifans, I think is how you say his name. He's so good as Otto. He's making me, I'm a sucker for a good villain, and you look at Otto, and I think they did a good job in the first episode of showing that Daemon is dangerous and he is pretty vile. He's pretty much a bad guy, whatever. And I like that they get you to see from Otto's perspective in that first episode until he tries to marry. He tells his young daughter basically to go comfort the king. He is so great. He's doing such a good job, and I love, like, every time, even in this episode, where Viserys just gets tired of Otto after a while, just politicking, and and he did that also in the first episode too. I'm really digging Otto and his scheming, and I'm glued to the screen. So Rhys Ifans, and then you have Emily Carey, I think is her name. Again, not all these names are clicking in my head. She's also so good as Alicent. And I like the angle they're taking with her. A lot of book readers will know what I'm talking about. I like the angle they're taking with her because I've seen this episode twice now. No, 3 times. And I found myself really, like, I care about Alicent. And I do care about Viserys. And I want everything to go smoothly. See if it does. And so I love her performance. She's doing such a great job, and she's making me care about her. And another one, not a lot of people are talking about her acting, but especially this episode, and just her politicking. Yes, she's being used as a pawn by Otto, and I think she even knows that, but she really has no choice. She has to go basically with what her dad says. But this episode, she really came into her own as queen, and I like it. I like it. See, they're doing a great job so far with showing everybody's complexities, everybody's, all the interpersonal relationships. I love a good drama, and this show just does character drama so well. And it's the reason why I fell in love with Game of Thrones and why I read the books initially, is because I just loved all the drama, and I love Ned Stark. Really, that's really what it was. It was Ned Stark. It was Ned Stark who got me to read the books from that first season. I love Ned Stark. So yeah, I this show is just so good, and I know I'm missing stuff. It was cool seeing Harwin break bones. Cool seeing Clubfoot. It's great that they're introducing these characters who are gonna. Oh, and Kristen Cole. Great. I love how they're setting him up. I love how they're setting him up. And again, just all around, everybody's doing a great job acting wise. Like I have no issues with the acting in this show so far. I'm digging it. And if this if by the end of this season all the episodes are as good as these first 3, we have a winner on our hands. And again, shows how do I put it? This universe and all these different spin-offs they're going to do, if they're all to this quality or close to this quality, we are in good hands. And I trust in Ryan Condal. Miguel Sapochnik, I think that's his name. Sorry if I'm saying it wrong. Another. I love that he came on because he directed. Say what you will about Game of Thrones, but I never really had any complaints about the battles themselves, like the different, except for the long night that sucked ass. But I love that they got him to come to do it. Of course, he's not going to be on the second season. They already announced that he left the show to do other stuff. I think possibly that Snow show that they're planning on doing with bringing Kit Harington back. So, yeah, there's so much good in this show. I really have no complaints. Love seeing the dragons. I love the battle. I love all the politicking. I love seeing some Lannisters come in. Seeing more of another Lionel Strong. Fantastic, just great. I love. So far, he has counseled the king the best. He's given him the best advice. He's told him, "Hey, it's really gross, and I do not support. Obviously, their world is different, so obviously I don't support it in our world or our life. I've got kids." But he did give him the best. He has given him the best political counsel with marrying Lena. Yes, gross, I know. But also in this episode, telling him you need to marry Rhaenyra and Laenor. It will soothe the wounds that have already been created. And he's given the best advice. I really like him, and I hope we get to see more and more of him. And House Strong going to be very important to this show. So I just, man, I love it. I love it. They got me again. And I'm glad I had so much hype because they've met all my hype. So yeah, this show's fantastic. It's my favorite show on TV right now. It's gonna be hard to top, and I'm just sad that we're probably gonna have to wait 2 years for the next season, just because of all the budget and they took a year and a half with this. So that's the only bummer is I want to see all 10 episodes, but by the end of the 10 episodes, that means gonna have to wait another 2 years, basically another year and a half, 2 years for the next season. But hey, that's about it. If you like this video, please like it. Please subscribe. You want to leave a comment, just be nice. That's all I ask. Is just be nice. And that's it. Thank you guys for listening.